least it says 5 o'clock on my page. Here we go. We got some folks coming in now. It took a little bit before I did a presentation. It took a minute or two for some students to pop in. So we got some folks coming in now. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your Wednesday evening to join us. Appreciate it. My name is Doug Harrington. I am one of the admissions counselors here for Binghamton University. I am a Binghamton alum. I did graduate in 2016 and 2017 with both my bachelor's and master's respectively. And I am, been here in this role ever since. This is going 4 years now in this role. And I'm really happy to represent the university. So appreciate it. We are recording this session. So if you'd like to tune in later, or if you're watching later on, welcome. I'll pass it over to my colleague, David, to do an introduction before you pass it over to our alumni.
All right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is David Babb, and I'm one of the assistant directors of admission, locally based in New Jersey. So if any of you are joining us from New Jersey, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. As Doug said, we are going to be having a fantastic evening today with one of our fantastic Binghamton alum. I myself am a SUNY alum, didn't go to Binghamton, but I did graduate from another SUNY. And I'm very excited that we can be joined today by Miss Sophie Rosenbaum. And Sophie, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Hello, so I am Sophie Rosenbaum. I graduated in 2012. I always have to think about that carefully because I went to graduate school right after. So I graduated in consecutive years. And yeah, I currently work at the Associated Press as a news editor, and I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much again for popping in. So Sophie, maybe to start off, if you could just tell a little bit more about your background and your Binghamton story and what, your time through Binghamton. Did you know what you wanted to do right from the beginning? What kind of changed throughout your time here, and what kind of led you into the role that you're in now?
Yeah, so I would say I didn't know what I wanted to do, and that's part of why I chose Binghamton. I felt like it was a really good option. It was such a great school and had so many different things that, I could dig into. And I knew I was interested in a couple of things, but I didn't have that one dream job type of thing just yet. And it felt stupid to spend a lot of money on something I was not positive I wanted to do. But so I guess for the beginning part of my schooling, I would just always tell people I wanted to be a lawyer, and I was kind of pursuing that path. I decided to do the PPL major, and, I went down this path as far as taking the LSAT twice, and getting the same score the second time that I had the first time, despite a prep class. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, and that I would not be able to get into the kind of school that I wanted to go to. And that was maybe not right for me. That was around my junior year, but the whole time I had been writing for Pipe Dream, and I had also written for my high school paper, and, always loved that. And I guess I felt that I wasn't positive about journalism either. But I felt that it's always good to work on your writing and your communication skills and whatever. And so I sort of was pursuing both of those things at the same time. And I think I had made up for myself that maybe I could be a legal analyst, journalist, kind of like Savannah Guthrie or something like that. But as I said, my legal aspirations kind of blew up at the end of my junior year. And then I focused pretty heavily on journalism. And as I said, I went to grad school after for journalism. So by that point, I was pretty sure. But yeah, I think I went through a whole learning curve during my journey at Binghamton, and something like Pipe Dream definitely helped, to make it so that I knew that was something I was good at and that I wanted to pursue.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I have a follow-up real quick. With your time with Pipe Dream, do you have a favorite article that you might remember that you might have written while you were a member of, the Pipe Dream staff?
Yeah, so I have a couple. One was that I interviewed Mark Ruffalo, but before he was definitely famous, but he wasn't the Hulk or anything like that yet. And I know that probably most people know what fracking is these days because it's very prevalent, but I swear it was like not a commonly known thing when I was interviewing him. And he lives in like near the border of Pennsylvania and New York, and is very passionate about environmental issues. And basically what happened was I was in like I was somewhere getting food like on campus, and my editor called me and said, the person who was supposed to interview Mark Ruffalo can't make it. He's going to be here in 15 minutes. You're going to do it. And I was like in, not clothes that I would have liked to interview Mark Ruffalo in, and knew nothing about him or fracking or anything. But I actually think it made the interview like go better, because I was just like, I know nothing. We are going to start like from there. But he was super nice and great. And one other one that comes to mind that was a little bit more hard hitting was just that bunch of my friends were trying to get counseling services and getting turned away from the counseling center. And we wound up doing this big investigation, and it led to them like adding more staff, and it felt like, journalism's power working there. So those are two that stick out for me.
Oh, that's awesome. And, I think it's, throughout your career now, you always have that. You didn't even hesitate. You had those right in the front of your mind. So, that really, I think, speaks to the opportunities, here at Binghamton, that, through the rest of your life, you'll always have those memories and always have those opportunities from where you started, which I think is pretty cool. So I'll turn it over to David to ask the next question.
Yeah, Sophie, those are fantastic, fantastic things that you brought up. I wish I had some of those experiences. That sounded really good. On the note of those experiences, I guess you probably answered my question already, but I'll ask it anyways. So can you tell us what are some of your fondest memories at Binghamton, within your major, just life?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Pipe Dream obviously is connected to so many of my memories. At the beginning, I was just a reporter and, obviously doing cool and fun articles, but not necessarily like involved all the time with the paper. And by the end, I was like the deputy news director and at production nights twice a week, and which was down in I don't even know what it's called anymore, old union or whatever, the union that was there when I was there. And, we were in the basement just cranking out this paper, and it was just like a really special time. And, I think there was a decent amount of scandal and other fun things happening that kept us very busy and made it feel like, not the big leagues, but like it wasn't just, oh, I'm doing this fun extracurricular thing. It's like, no, this matters. We're like holding people to account and getting action, like I just said with my piece about the counseling services. And so definitely Pipe Dream was a big thing. And then it was also I lived in Dickinson for the old Dickinson for 2 or 3 years, and got pretty involved with the community government there. And one of my roommates was the president of Dickinson. And so very active in that community. And I felt that just like, that was also a really special experience to be living in a place that you were also like trying to foster, fun times. And I think the school does a really good job at creating opportunities like that. So I think that probably those two things are my highlights. And those were my biggest like extras that I did too.
Have you been back to campus, recently or in the last couple of years or anything like that?
Yes, I came back. I've actually only been back once since I graduated, and that was, I think, 2 years ago now, for an alumni event. And man, Dickinson, like nobody wanted to live there when I was living there, except that we had the biggest room. So like there was this perk of it. And now it's like the most beautiful and the coolest place to live. And I'm like, you don't know what it was like when I feel like an old person, but yeah, the campus, I just feel like they've done so much amazing work, and it looks like the place I know, but also doesn't somehow. And I think it's really nice that they've been able to like kind of keep true to their roots, but really, innovate and make some cool changes.
Yeah, I think they've done a really great job repurposing things. I mean, Dickinson was opening, new Dickinson was opening for the first time when I was coming as a first year student. And I always love, meeting alumni who lived in Dickinson prior, and I always like to go to them and just say, hey, your dining hall, that's our admission center now.
Yeah, exactly. Like where you live for 2 years, that's where classes happen.
Yep.
So yeah, it's weird, but
No.
cool. I'm glad,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm a Hinman alum myself. I lived there for 2 years. I was president of Roosevelt Hall when I was there, and just seeing they're redoing the dining hall there, and they're expanding it and making it like twice as big. And I see the pictures of it now, and it's just like, I want to come back. Like, where's my fancy dining hall, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, really, really great, to see the university expanding and putting all the resources into to improve student life and academics and everything like that with all of our facilities. So, kind of going off of academics, you did mention the different majors that you were a part of here at Binghamton. Do you have a favorite professor, quote unquote, that maybe might have even been outside of your major, maybe an experience or anything like that you had with one of our faculty members?
Yeah, I actually think I only told you my majors before this started, so I'll just say them again. So I double majored in PPL, which is the philosophy-based political science major at Binghamton, which is like a pretty cool additional major that they offer. And then I really did not want to take Shakespeare or Brit Lit, but really did want to take the rhetoric classes, which are the journalism classes. And you couldn't do that if you weren't an English major. So I created my own major, which sounds really cool and fun and not hard. And it is fun and cool, but it is also hard. You have to like do a whole proposal and all that stuff, but it was basically a combination of rhetoric, economics, and politics classes. And I feel like media and politics is really close to what I do now. Not as much politics, but just there's this dynamic between media and politics that exists. You can't have one without the other. And I was really interested in that. So that's what I did. And I would say that my two favorite professors are actually connected to each of those majors. So I took a philosophy class with a professor named Charles Goodman. And I just felt like we were talking about really complex issues that were really hard to explain. And he had this way of like just distilling it down into a way that was really easy to understand. And if you didn't get it, he could like instantly take it down another level for you. And I just felt like it made it resonate so much more. And I loved his class. And then Mary Haupt was my journalism professor. And she was also my advisor on my the major that I made. And she's actually the reason that I'm currently teaching at Binghamton journalism class. She just retired, unfortunately, 2 years ago, but trying to fill in her footsteps with a fellow former student, and we're teaching journalism in her honor. But she's amazing, and I loved her. So, but unfortunately, no one will have the opportunity to have her. But you could maybe have me, so that's fun.
Yeah, no, that's certainly awesome. Thank you so much for elaborating on that. And maybe, were you approached by the university? Was it something that you volunteered to kind of head on, teaching now? I wasn't aware that you were doing that. That's awesome. So
yeah,
that's great that you're able to come back and kind of give back to the university. But how did that come to fruition? I mean, did you hear about the retirement and decide to step in? Like, what led to that?
It was exactly that. When I came for the alumni event 2 years ago, Mary came because we hadn't seen each other in so long. And she told me then that she was retiring, and also that there wasn't really a plan to replace her. And, I just felt so strongly that there's not a journalism major at Binghamton, but they have Pipe Dream. They have so many other campus publications. There's a lot of people who are interested in journalism there. And not only that, like, news is so integral to our lives these days. And like, it just felt like there can't not be a journalism class at Binghamton. And so me and a fellow alum reached out to the school and said, we want to help solve this problem. Can we talk about we both are based in New York City and are not moving to Binghamton anytime soon. But, we wanted to be able to help. And this was before the pandemic. So we actually, we taught a summer class that went really well last year. And then obviously the pandemic has made asynchronous learning even bigger, and they asked us to teach again this semester. And, I don't know what the future of it will be or what will happen, but I feel like those types of classes will continue. And, it's good for the school to have access to people like us who are based in New York and working, in the industry. And so, yeah, it was a very like kind of natural process, but it's pretty cool to be teaching now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'll turn it back over to David.
Yeah, Sophie, you brought up some really unique experiences. Like, I think you were talking about like creating your own major, and that is a very, very unique experience. It kind of ties into my question, and I'd love for you to talk about that on its own. But if you could talk about like, what unique experiences you had at Binghamton, things that you don't, if you've talked to other friends that have now graduated from other universities, what is something that you would say is kind of unique that you haven't heard anyone talk about that you experienced while you were at Binghamton?
Well, I have no debt, so I feel like that's one.
That's a big one.
That's one. That's a big one, though. Not that no one has debt who goes to Binghamton, but that was again part of the reason that I chose to go, and definitely like I am continuing to benefit from that in my current life. I mean, I definitely think the making your own major thing, like I have never heard of that, and it's not common at this school, but I think the fact that they even have that as an option and that there are people who have done it, including me, it's really cool, because it means that you can kind of make your own destiny. And if you have like a bunch of interests, but the school isn't necessarily like advertising that as an option for you, you can take it upon yourself. Again, you have to have a little bit of like support and a lot of energy to put into it. It's not like so hard. It's not like they make you jump through a million hoops, but there's some red tape, and it's not just like, I want to have my own major and then you do. But I do think it's also like something that if you're passionate about something, then it teaches you early on, like what it is like to fight for that and to, study it pretty intensely, in your formative years. So I think that's a good one.
Nice. And I have I think 2 follow-ups, but I think we have time, Doug. Yeah, we do, right? Okay, cool. So I wanted to know, like, it's more specific to your job, because you also said you're also now kind of working with the university, and I see some questions kind of coming in about jobs and all this other stuff. How would you say like the university kind of helped you transition, from student Sophie to professional Sophie?
Yeah. So I had an internship, actually 2 internships when I was in college. I was about to say high school. That's not true. In college, one was with like a lawyer, and that was when I was considering still being a lawyer. But it was super informative, and it kind of showed me like, okay, I'm not necessarily interested in what he's doing, but like I went to court with him. I was in his office all the time. He really like took me in, and I think allowed me to be like a surrogate for him. And I think that's another thing that's special about Binghamton. There's a lot of, like professionals working in that area. And if you have an interest in healthcare, if you have an interest in engineering, or, all sorts of other things, like you can have really good internships locally. I also interned at a TV station that was across the street from where I lived after living off campus, which was in University Plaza. No idea if it's still called that. Again, that was like the cool place to live then, and now I feel like it's not, but who knows? And, again, that was another experience where it taught me I didn't want to be a TV journalist, but I'm so happy that I learned that like in college. Sometimes I think it's really important to learn like what you don't want just as much as it is to learn what you do want. And I would rather have like my first job be something that I knew I did want versus like, what if my first job was in TV and then I realized like, oh God, I hate this. Not that that's the worst thing in the world, but like I was able to learn it in an internship that was already going to have like, a short time limit. And so, yeah, I think that both of those experiences were super helpful in figuring out what I wanted in the future, and help me be more focused once I was working in real life. As I also mentioned, I went to grad school, and I think that like honed it in even more and kind of connected me a bit more. But that's because like it's based in New York City, and like the teachers are all working journalists, so it's a little bit more, you're connected to that world. But I got connected to that world through people that I knew at Binghamton. I would have never known about the school I went to without the people I met at Binghamton. So it's kind of full circle.
Sophie, that's great. And I think one of the things that you said is really, really important for a lot of students coming in, especially since a lot of students are undecided. It's just that idea of like trying these new experiences. They sometimes help you know what you don't want to do, right? That's really big for undecided students. And that's going to segue into a few other questions, but I'm going to turn over to Doug.
Well, and just to add on that, like I think there's so many classes that I wish I could have taken that I didn't have time, but I tried really hard to always have a class that like I didn't necessarily know how I would feel about it, because it made me learn like, oh, I love this, or like, no, that was not for me. But like, then it's just a semester of your life, and like hopefully you do okay in the class, and like that's it. But what if it's something you love, and then that's your like future, So I think it's really good to experiment with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a good segue to our next question here that did come in through the Q&A from one of our attendees. And attendees, if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We'll be more than happy to try to get to all of them that are coming in. But one of the questions that was asked was, how rigorous did you find your classes here at Binghamton? That kind of like that transition from high school. Were you challenged in the courses that you were taking?
Oh yeah. It's interesting because, I'm originally from upstate New York, about 2 hours north of Binghamton and Oswego. And, a lot of the kids at Binghamton, the students are from Long Island or New York City. And I just think there's also a lot of people from upstate and all over the world, but there's a lot from Long Island and New York City. And I found that like, our high school education and our education before that was much different. And like when I used to be the top of the class, and then I was kind of more like towards the middle of Binghamton when I started, and I had some like inferiority like feelings of like, oh God, now I'm not the like, star student, all that stuff. But I worked my way back up to that throughout. But I think that there were definitely some classes, in that the class I mentioned from Charles Goodman, like that was one of the hardest classes I ever took. I also like learned the most from it and felt really passionate about doing well in it and working with the professor to make sure that when I was struggling, like I would go to his office hours and I would, put in the work. But like it was not an easy class. And I definitely like, I'm pretty sure I remember like failing one of his tests and freaking out. But he worked with me and it was all good and all that stuff. But yeah, I would say that I took some really hard classes. The hardest class I took was a linguistics class that I took to try to do better on the LSAT. And I really almost failed that class. Like I had to take it pass fail because I did so poorly in it, but I did learn a lot. At the time, I think I regretted my decision, but now I think that it was a good thing.
No, it's certainly good to challenge yourself with some classes, especially ones that don't have to do necessarily potentially with your major or what you're studying or anything like that. So, but we did get a question, a pre-asked question from one of our registrants, Juliana, who is very interested in journalism, writing, and political science and psychology here. And she would like to hear more about your work at the AP and what you do now, at the AP, if you could, elaborate a little bit more on the current, maybe day-to-day on what you do now.
Yeah. So I'm a news editor for a 10-state region in the Northeast. So it's basically like a backwards L from Maine to Ohio. And so all news that happens in those 10 states, I'm responsible for editing the stories. I, edit enterprise and feature stuff too. And then I'm part of some strategy teams that work more broadly across the AP, both on our internal speed on filing breaking news and just broader audience strategy on like SEO and making sure our stories are being seen by the world. I've been really involved with the Chauvin verdict, which just happened yesterday, and, trying to make sure, again, that our work gets seen by as many eyeballs as possible, and that all of our standards are being upheld and all of that. And just, I've been at AP for almost 3 years. Before that, I worked at Time, where I did kind of similar work, editing. And then before that, I was a breaking news reporter for 4 years at the New York Post, where I did all sorts of crazy things. And it was a very interesting experience, but I got a little burnt out there. I was writing like 10 stories a day. So burnout is real. And I think like the good thing is that even in an industry like news, there's a lot of talk about mental health and taking care of yourself. And the pandemic has only made that more of a thing that people are talking about. And I very much support that. So it's a good thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I'll turn it over to David. David, we only have a few minutes left. I don't know if you want to ask our last question that we have here. I would certainly love to ask this question last, but if you want to go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And Sophie, thanks for bringing up the burnout and, mental health. I think that's a very big thing for students to think about. Let me jump right into the last question since we're running out of time. So do you have any advice that you would give to an incoming prospective student that's planning on going to Binghamton, or even if they're looking at another university? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've said some of the things already, but like taking a class that you're not sure if you'll love, or if you're not even sure you will like it, but think that it could help you in some way in the future, like do that. Take risks, and don't be scared if you don't know what you want to do. I know people who graduate from college and still don't know what they want to do. I know people who are my age who don't know what they want to do, or they're miserable at their job and they want to pivot. They say something like, we'll change jobs 3 times in our life, like change careers 3 times in our life, which is like horrifying to think about, but also kind of exciting. So like don't freak out if you don't know, I guess, is really important. And then I also just try to tell people to really think about networking, and if you meet someone that you're interested in, that you want to do what they do, or you want to like be on their radar in some way, like don't just reach out to them when you want a job. Like try to have a rapport with them, and like if you talked about something in the news, like send them an article, or just try to keep in touch with them, because then when you do need them, it doesn't make it seem as much like you're only talking to them when you need something from them. And that has gotten me pretty far in some places. So I think that that's a good one. And what else? I don't know. Have fun while you're in school. It's like, it's a really special time. And I wish I was going to go be in college for 4 years and be able to learn and play and do all the fun stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sophie.
Yeah.
And we're going to turn it back over to Doug so we can wrap up.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sophie, for all your amazing answers and advice this afternoon, evening, whatever you want to call it. It's that weird hour. Thank you to all of our attendees for hopping on. Again, this session is recorded. So if you hopped on late or anything like that, it'll be ready hopefully very soon, and it'll be posted on our website. But if you have any questions at all for any of us, please feel free to reach out to our office. We'll be more than happy to answer anything that comes our way. So with that, like I said, it is 5:30 on the dot. So again, thank you so much, Sophie. Good luck with everything that you're doing at the AP. It sounds amazing. Appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. And again, thank you for volunteering and taking the time to speak with our students. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of your evening, and let us know how we can help. So good night, everyone.